Emmett Till was born July 25th, 1941 in Chicago, Illinois. He was 14 years of age at the time of his murder on August 28th, 1945, just a month being 14 years old. So Emmett was known as a jokester and a prankster amongst his friends here in Chicago. He had contracted polio at a young age, and it left him with a speech impediment. So, the neighborhood kids would razz him, make fun of him, and instead of retreating into a small hole in his apartment and hide from them, he would just razz them right back, make jokes right back to them, and he became, the prankster, the comedian amongst his friends, and that's how a lot of them would describe him as of today. So, on the summer of 1945, Emmett had went down to Money, Mississippi to visit his uncle. His uncle the previous summer had visited him in Chicago, and Emmett was asking him a bunch of questions on what it was like to live in Mississippi, so forth and so on. And his uncle said, hey, well, why don't you just come on down? You can experience it for yourself. So Emmett did. And the story goes as follows. So Emmett and his cousins and a couple of their friends had went to a candy store to purchase candy, soda, or what have you. And it was a store that was owned by a married couple by the name of Roy and Carolyn Bryant. And while in the store, the story gets a little bit murky, as often many stories do. Stories change from year to year, decade to decade. People misremember things. They don't remember things quite the way it actually happened. So the story pretty much is that Emmett seen a pretty white lady and he whistled at her. Now, one of the friends that was with him says that it was more of like a dare type thing where he's like, yeah, I dare you to whistle at her or what have you. Point being, he whistled at Carolyn and they all ran out. Now, the friend described Emmett whistling at a white woman, the equivalent of throwing a rock through a window. And when he whistled, they all ran because they weren't trying to stay around and see what was going to happen next. So they all laughed about it, what have you. And 3 days later, a knock on the door of Emmett's uncle. He opens the door, and there's a white man with a gun and a flashlight. And there was a woman waiting in a truck in the driveway, and there were several men with him. And he asked where Emmett was, and he asked him what this was concerning. He said that Emmett disrespected his sister. The man that had went to the door was a man by the name of J.W. Millam, which was the brother of Carolyn. So Emmett comes out, and they basically at gunpoint kidnap him. I'm assuming back in those days you didn't have access to a phone, so it's not like you can call the police. And when you're going to call the police, well, black people were often mistreated in the South in those days. And so Emmett disappeared. His family had called his mother like he had been kidnapped. His mother was hoping that nothing awful would happen to her son, but unfortunately, 3 days later, Emmett's body was found in a river about less than a dozen miles from where the uncle lived. Emmett was beaten very badly. He was tortured. One of his eyes was gouged out. He was missing an ear. He had a 75-pound fan from a cotton gin, industrial-sized fan, tied to his neck with barbed wire. His corpse was in very, very bad condition, being that in the summertime in Mississippi, in the humidity, it's going to disfigure a corpse very rapidly. And the authorities down there tried to cover it up. They tried to bury him as fast as they could. When Emmett's mother found out about the murder, about the lynching, she demanded that his body be brought back to Chicago for a proper burial. And when he arrived back in Chicago, she opened the casket that he was in and seeing how horrible in shape his corpse was. I'm going to put a picture up, and that is his corpse. She had noticed the gaping wound in his head. She said she could see from one side of his head to the other, all daylight, from where the bullet entered and exited his head. And Emmett's mother always prided in the fact that her son's teeth were so perfect. She would always tell him, brush your teeth, brush your teeth, brush your teeth. She said in an interview that he had the nicest, prettiest teeth she had ever seen in her life. And as we approached the grave, the murdering scumbags, Roy Bryant and J.W. Millam, were arrested and tried for the murder of Emmett Till. But a racist, all-white jury in the South seen it a different way, and the verdict came in as not guilty. These guys got away with this kid's murder. And it was a double jeopardy case, being that once it was tried and ever found either guilty or innocent, there would be no retrial. And they literally got away with Emmett's murder. In a 1956 article in Look magazine, for $4,000, J.W. Millam and Roy Bryant admitted to the murder. They admitted that they killed this young boy. They admitted that they tortured him. They admitted that they tied a industrial-sized fan to him and tried to weight his body down in the river. And there was nothing nobody could do. The wife, Carolyn Bryant, even though her testimony was inadmissible during the trial, she had testified that Emmett had grabbed her by the waist and was catcalling her and saying inappropriate things, a lot of cuss words and swear words. Later in a 2008 interview, she admitted that she lied. Nothing of the kind happened. Let's see if we get this open. Not sure what this means. Maybe they're going to install a bridge somewhere at a later date and time, which they probably will. So rest in peace to this young boy. Doesn't matter what he did. That's what happened to him was one of the more brutal murders I've ever read about. And this is why we teach history to never forget that horrible atrocities like this occurred to Emmett, and we don't sweep these things under the rug. We honestly don't. And to anybody who's watching this who says that I'm somehow being divisive and I'm bringing this up, this is a past and it should stay in the past. Well, let me tell you, this boy did not ask to be brutally tortured and murdered. And everybody has a story to tell. There's thousands of graves out here, and I don't know none of their stories. But I tell you what, I know this boy's story right here. And simply me just kind of telling it, I know a lot of people already know the story. And it was an absolute atrocity what happened to him. And just here to not to shake my finger, just to remind people, this boy, he had Emmett he was alive. He had things he wanted to do. He liked girls. He liked running with his friends. And a couple of murdering racist scumbags murdered him, and a racist jury found that they were innocent of the crime. It only took them a little over an hour to come up with the verdict, and the only reason why they said it took them an hour was because they went for a soda break. There was a very, very racist time in our history, you know. It is what it is, guys. So rest in peace to Emmett Till. His mother is buried out here, too. I was looking around in the graves, and I couldn't find her, but I think she might be over by the entrance, so we're going to go drive over there really quickly. And here is the grave of Mammy Till Mobley. She's buried next to her. I believe this might be her second or her third husband. I'm not quite sure. Mammy Till Mobley, the mother of the slain Emmett Lewis Till Jr. and the wife of the late Jeannie Mobley Jr. I was wondering where Emmett Till's dad was in all of this, me just wondering, and I looked him up. His name was Lewis Till, and he was a soldier in the United States Army. He was stationed during World War II in Italy, and him and a friend of his, they were arrested on suspicions of committing a couple rapes in the city where they were stationed at, and the murder of a young Italian woman. And he was tried and convicted and sentenced to death, and he was hung. He's buried in a cemetery for Americans in France somewhere. Not very pertinent to the story, but just kind of shows the tragedy in all of this. Just very weird. They both died the same year, I believe. So, the father and son. I don't know. Very sad all around. My prayers to Mammy's soul, Emmett's, and that woman that was killed. All right, guys. Lamont at Large. From the Burr Oak Cemetery in Allsip, Illinois. I will catch up with you on the next vlog. Thank you for watching, guys. I appreciate it. See you later. Peace out.